Hello, and welcome to the Indie Nook. I'm your host, Blake McKean, and today, if you can believe it, I have more Citizen Sleeper related topics to talk about. So today I'll be talking about the art book for Citizen Sleeper, Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, and Citizen Sleeper DLC. And when I get to the DLC, I will have a spoiler discussion, so I'll make sure to mark that clearly so you can click away. So to start off, I wanted to talk about the art book. Now, I didn't necessarily know that they made an art book for Citizen Sleeper, but I was browsing the internet and found it on itch.io for $10. So I picked up the PDF version and I read it on my tablet, and honestly, I loved it. I would absolutely recommend this if you're a Citizen Sleeper fan. I guess it does have spoilers in the art book. You get to see the characters, and they kind of talk about, I guess, like the character evolution when they were creating them, and different aspects of it, and actually getting to like see that, like the physical concepts of the character and how the character evolves. I thought it was super fascinating, and I really loved that. So if you're a Citizen Sleeper fan, definitely took up the art book, or definitely pick up the art book. And the evolution of the game through this book is just incredible. I absolutely loved it. I really liked seeing the concept for Erlen's Eye, and just seeing how that started and where it ended up. I thought was fascinating, and I honestly I really enjoyed seeing the different kinds of architecture that it started out. And kind of where it was in the middle, and then kind of just starting to see it all kind of come together. That was really cool and something that I thought was really interesting. But one of the features that I thought was most interesting about the book is Gary Damian Martin talks about in the art book how he designed the movement on the station. So obviously it's an isometric view, you're looking down at the station. He designed that around a mouse scroll, and I just thought that was really cool because I can see how, using the mouse scroll to go from location to location would be really cool. And I played it on Switch, and I thought that was the weakest part of the game, was using the joystick to go up and down and kind of scroll with the joystick to the different locations. It didn't feel great, but it didn't bother me. And just to know that was designed around a mouse and the scroll of a mouse, I just thought that was really cool. So I do feel like if you haven't played it and are interested in picking it up, maybe you should pick it up on Steam. That way you can get to, experience that aspect of it, where you can scroll with the mouse. Which, I kind of have two thoughts on it. I really enjoyed playing it in bed on my Switch, and I thought that was really fun. It kind of took up like nighttime reading. So if you're interested in that, and want to play it at your desk or play it with a device that has a mouse wheel, I would definitely recommend that. So I thought that was really cool, and just like learning about it was awesome. And again, that was $10 on itch.io, so definitely check out the art book if you're interested. And I guess I'll move on. Now, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, I went and I saw Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind in theaters, which I thought was really cool. I've personally never seen the film, and I guess, obviously this is a Studio Ghibli film by Miyazaki, who's, a very well-known auteur. And I guess my history with these Studio Ghibli films is I really hadn't had much exposure, but I just, would see the concept art on Pinterest a lot. And I would, click on it and see what it was from. I was like, wow, I guess Studio Ghibli. And I guess it didn't really mean anything to me. I guess I don't really know how. I grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s. I guess I just don't know how I missed it. I don't know how I was never exposed to Studio Ghibli films, but somehow I wasn't. And I guess this past year I've seen 3 films. The first one I saw was Princess Mononoke, which I really liked. I thought that was awesome. That was a really fun film and a good introduction, I guess, to the films. And then I saw Porco Rosso. I saw Porco Rosso earlier in the summer, and I really loved that. Hey, this is Editing Blake here from the future. And really quick, before I get into Porco Rosso, I say that you play as in this. And I just wanted to clarify that this is a film. You watch this. But I go on to say that I think it would make an incredible video game, and I'm surprised that there's nothing like it, or I haven't seen anything like it. So that was absolutely a Freudian slip, but just wanted to clarify that this is a film. Well, I guess back to it. I guess if you're unfamiliar, you kind of play as like a bounty hunter that has a seaplane, and you kind of play in this this fantasy world where just like everybody has a seaplane. Like there's seaplane pirates, you get around on seaplanes, and I guess it's on these islands off the coast of Italy, and I just thought it was fascinating and like such a cool, I guess, like concept for a fantasy location. And I wish there was a video game that kind of took place in that similar setting. Like I know there's games that have like dogfighting, and I think that would be such a cool, I guess, setting for a game. And I guess one of the things about Porco Rosso is that the character they have honor, so they don't necessarily shoot down the other seaplane pilots. He shoots the engines, so that gives them a chance to land, I guess. And I just thought that was really interesting. So I would love to see that in a game where maybe you disable planes, but I mean obviously like just the setting of it and the place is really such a huge part of that film. So I think that would be like such a cool, like chill, cozy game, just to be able to kind of fly around in an environment like that. And I guess that brings me to Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. And I guess that Miyazaki is releasing his last film later in the year. And I guess I don't really know when that is, so let me look that up. Hey, this is Editing Blake here from the future. Turns out he's not retiring, and I guess he's announced his pending retirement multiple times and has walked it back every time. So I guess he's not retiring, and I guess there's more to come. But I guess back to it. Okay, so Miyazaki is releasing his last film, The Boy and the Heron, which is I guess it's already released in Japan. It released on July 14th, 2023, and I guess this is related to a 1937 novel by the same name, and I guess the film is kind of inspired by that. So, and I guess the why this kind of made headlines is obviously because it's Miyazaki's last film before he retires, but he decided not to release any trailers for it. And he kind of said that there's enough noise in the world, like I don't need to be adding to it, which I think is interesting. And so I guess kind of just like in tandem with that, but also I don't know, just because it's a good time, I suppose it's in the zeitgeist. They're having limited runs of a lot of Studio Ghibli's films nationwide. I guess here in America, and I was able to catch it on the last day, Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, and I guess I'll link a website in the show descriptions on some of the other films that they're offering throughout the summer. Okay, so I guess here are some of the films that I'll link the website, and then I'll also link the lineup, I guess as it's called. And I guess it's called, if you just want to look it up on your own, Studio Ghibli Fest 2023. And I think they've already shown a couple of them but I guess like Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind and Castle in the Sky and Kiki's Delivery Service, they've already shown. I think they've already shown My Neighbor Totoro and Ponyo as well, which I need to see those. Those are also on my list. So I guess from August 5th through August 9th, you can see Princess Mononoke in the theaters. And from August 20th through the 22nd, I'm sorry, this is August 20th and August 22nd, Porco Rosso, you can see that in films. From August 21st and 23rd, The Wind Rises. On September 23rd and 27th, Howl's Moving Castle. From October 28th through November 1st, Spirited Away. And I think those are the last 5 films that they are showing in theaters. So, very, very cool. I had never seen Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, and I think it takes the top for me. I think of the ones I've seen, this one's probably my favorite, and it kind of takes place on Earth in the far future. It kind of seems it takes place thousands of years in the future from where we are today. And I don't know, I thought the film was really impactful. Obviously, I think you should see it for yourself, so I won't spoil it. But I just really enjoyed the themes that it touches on. It kind of touches on, some environmentalism and how we treat our world today. And I really enjoyed it. It had a very unique visual style and how it portrayed, woods and botany. And I really enjoyed that, as well as bugs. I don't like bugs per se. I would say I dislike bugs, but there are quite a few bugs in this, and it didn't really set me off. So if you are also a person that doesn't like bugs, it's probably not going to bother you. But there are some creepy bugs in in this movie, but I think that it really aids the overall film. So I really enjoyed it. I mean, I thought it was awesome. But when I bought my tickets, I tried to buy, I guess I don't necessarily know if what I bought even existed, but I thought I had bought an English dub ticket, so I guess to where the film would be in English, but the film was in Japanese. It was in Japanese dub with English subtitles, and I didn't even notice. I kind of, like, when I first got there, I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is the Japanese dub. And after a minute, there was I guess it kind of opens with some intense action, and after that, I didn't notice it until the end, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't even notice. So, that didn't really affect my enjoyment at all. But I guess I have done, all the other Studio Ghibli films that I've seen them in English. I guess the English dub. So maybe I'll try and see some of the other ones in the Japanese dub as well. But man, yeah, that was really cool. I'm wondering now that I've done this, and I also played Ghost of Tsushima with the Japanese dub. I'm wondering if maybe I should branch out and try and do, other games in Japanese dub. So I guess we'll see. I guess I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, I guess one last thought on this, because obviously I'm not really going into spoilers. But I thought I think you can draw a very clear comparison, now that I've seen them from, I guess, both Princess Mononoke and Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. I think you can take those as both clear inspiration points for Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that's really interesting. I guess you'll have to see both films for yourself, and I think once you do, I think the comparison and inspiration will be fairly obvious. And I think that's interesting. I don't really have anything to say on that other than I noticed. So maybe after I get further into Tears of the Kingdom, I guess I'll have more to say on that, perhaps. But I guess the depths of Tears of the Kingdom, I think, are very similar visually to, I guess, the forest in Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And obviously, I guess Link's arm is very similar to, I guess, the protagonist's arm in Princess Mononoke. So very interesting. I think I kind of want to get further into Tears of the Kingdom just to see if there's, I guess, any other comparisons that you could make, because I think that's really interesting. But anyways, go see these films for yourself, and if you've never seen one, I would recommend starting with Princess Mononoke. But no, I think Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is my favorite that I've seen so far. And yeah, it was just spectacular to see that in the theater. So if you get a chance, or if any of the films that or any of the films that they still have coming to theaters that you'd like to see, I think it's absolutely worth it. So check that out. So I guess from here on out, I am going to be talking about DLC spoilers for Citizen Sleeper. So if you're going to be leaving, thanks for checking out this episode of the Indie Nook. And if you're sticking around, let's get into it. So the DLC, I guess it's worth noting it's a free DLC, and I really enjoyed it. I guess I'm going to keep the spoilers somewhat spoiler light. I'm just going to touch on some of the broader themes and kind of what I thought about it. So there's kind of, I guess, the way that this DLC starts is you kind of run into two characters around the Greenway in Erlen's Eye, and they're trying to get supplies for a flotilla of refugee ships that have landed and found themselves docked on Erlen's Eye. And I guess the government of the Eye, or I guess the quote unquote government kind of gang faction, you could say, they're not letting the refugees on. They're worried about the Eye not having enough life support and water, and I think they're also, worried about disease as well, because they're keeping the flotilla of refugee ships under a quarantine. And I think that's a really interesting place. I think that's a really interesting idea for a DLC, because there's, obviously the space station in space, and, you're very clearly struggling to make, to carve out an existence here, and you kind of just happen to land here, and, you're a refugee yourself in many senses of the way, or in many senses of the word, and just to kind of see how others, have come here for sanctuary, and in some ways you're kind of trapped here. I think that's really an interesting, way to examine how people end up where they're at. And you meet these two characters and are trying to get supplies. And if you continue on with the DLC and you continue to help them, they eventually ask you to help smuggle supplies to the flotilla. And, this kind of causes like a conflict of interest. It just causes a conflict as, you have to break the quarantine of the quasi-government. In doing so, you kind of put a target on your back. I mean, I guess I won't spoil too much on kind of what happens, but once you kind of, get through, there's an event, there's an explosion, and I think it just happens to be an accident. And the two sides, because of this explosion, the quarantine is kind of broken, and the refugees are able to get the supplies they need. And I think that a lot of residents of the Eye are wary of the refugees, because I think the underlying question is, what are they running from? Why did they leave where they were from? And that is kind of explained later on in the DLC. But before you get to that, you meet a whole host of new characters, and there's really three big flotilla ships, and they each come from the same system, and they each come from different economic classes. So there are three ships, and they each come from different planets, and they all went and colonized these three planets, and they each have their own ecosystems, their own culture, and I guess how they all work together. They kind of have a history, these three planets and these three ships from these three planets. And it's really interesting because you try and help them, and just the politics of these people, and some of them are willing to I guess let go of the past for a brighter future, and there are some factions that are not. And there was some conflict between the three, and I guess just seeing how some of them are willing to put the past behind them, and the others not, is really interesting as well. And how that kind of works out, where they're still all kind of stuck together in the moment, in this quarantine, and how that ends. It is really interesting. And I guess you kind of learn that what they were running from was this disruption, this kind of like an EMP blast that came from out of nowhere and disrupted the systems. And you kind of learn that if you do nothing, that the same thing is going to happen to the eye, and it's going to destroy the system, destroy the station, and it could kill everyone in the station. So there's this clock ticking down of the pending, I guess, calamity that's coming, and it's really a very intriguing DLC, and it's a really cool story and really keeps you on your toes. And it kind of turns out that this disruption, this EMP, these blasts are coming from some kind of Stargate. I forget the term that they use in the DLC, but it's a type of Stargate, and basically the Stargate allows the transport of raw materials from one side of the universe to the other. So there, I guess, would be mining operations in, like, let's say, for example, there's a planet, there's a settlement there, they can mine resources and then send it through the Stargate, and it goes back to I guess, the core systems, as they call it. And I guess in this intergalactic society, that's kind of how, I guess, the core worlds kind of rule, and have, I guess, a need for more raw materials, and there are, I guess, settlers and expanders going out and extracting those raw materials and sending them back. And I guess that there's a corporation that has a claim on the eye, and they're doing this to disrupt the inhabitants. And it just so happened that these three planets got caught in the crossfire of these EMP blasts, and they end up leaving. So the flotilla leaves before the pending doom, or I guess before the calamity, and you're kind of left to save the eye. And there is, of course, through your choices, you could abandon the eye and go with the flotilla, but I decided to stay and try and save the eye. And you do save the eye, and it's really interesting and kind of crazy how it all works out. And I really enjoyed the ending, which I guess I'll keep for you to play, or for you to have your own thoughts on. But I really enjoyed the ending that I got, and when I saw the credits roll for the final time, I do feel like a sense of finality, and I feel like I'm done with Citizen Sleeper. I really have no desire to return to it. I found it incredibly fulfilling and rewarding, and I felt like it really tied everything up in a nice bow. So I would absolutely recommend the DLC, and there's so much left for you to discover outside of what I talked about. But man, I mean, what an incredible game. I think I don't think there's much more to say in terms of Citizen Sleeper, so I probably won't return to it on the Indie Nook for a while. But man, I mean, obviously it had a huge impact on me, for me to talk about it so much, in this format. But man, what an incredible game. I'm just so excited for the sequel, but I'm in no rush to play it, and I do still find myself thinking about it as I guess if I'm not doing anything, the intrusive thoughts will kind of come in, and I'll think about Citizen Sleeper, and Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind as well. So both of these, I guess this film and this game, they really, I mean, they were both very unique, and they kind of find themselves coming back to me even days and weeks even after I finished them. So, wow, just incredible pieces of art, and the art book as well. Obviously, the art book of Citizen Sleeper is absolutely worth picking up. I mean, $10 on itch.io, and it's like 20 pages, and you just get some awesome art and get to kind of see more of the evolution of the characters, as well as the evolution of the eye itself. So, man, absolutely an incredible pickup for $10. Go watch a Studio Ghibli film and check out the DLC if you're interested. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this episode of the Indie Nook. So thank you so much for tuning in. You can find more of me and my co-host Brandon of the Sticky Buns podcast if you're interested. And I think we both stream as well, so there's plenty of us on the internet. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.